So this is going to be an analysis from the highlights of the second half of the Manchester derby. Let's get straight into it. So in this clip we can see United set up in this 3-1-5 or 3-1-6 shape, whatever you want to call it. The principles are still the same. The rest defence is the diamond at the base, and even though I have changed my mind on Martinez, which I will be covering in a video that will be out this week, one area where he's undoubtedly elite is in possession in the middle third, receiving the ball on the left side of the back three. And as Martinez gets a ball out of his feet, I think in this type of situation, we see the difference in the coordinated movement between having Højlund up front and having Xerxes up front. If Xerxes is a centre forward, you don't really want him being the player to make a run in behind, due to his obvious lack of pace. You want him being that player to receive the ball to feet, with his deeper movement also working to drag an opposition defender out of the back line. However, with Højlund, because he's the opposite style of striker to Xerxes, someone who is far better when he's using his pace to get in behind the back line, rather than say dropping off and receiving the ball to feet, particularly under pressure with his back to goal, it's more beneficial for him to make this angled run in behind, with Mainu being the player in the left-sided half space. And Mainu isn't exactly dropping towards the ball looking to receive it to feet, but he is holding a static position, which keeps Walker high in order to open up that space for Højlund to curve his run into. Martinez's lofted pass is perfectly weighted, and Højlund's movement is equally well timed. And this is where it probably could have been a penalty, but it's reckless from Diaz, even if it isn't a pen. I mean, he does exactly what Højlund wants, which is come across and completely clatter him, because if Diaz comes across and just holds his ground, I don't think Højlund's going to be able to spin the other side of him and get a cross in. But I guess we don't really know, because I guess you have to say it's good defending from Diaz because the penalty wasn't given, even if it is slightly reckless. But another thing I want to point out is that even if Højlund was able to win this battle v Diaz and manipulate his body and the ball to get into a position where he can put a ball across goal, Mainu, Bruno Fernandes and Maguire unusually are the three players who are positioned alongside Højlund in that central position, and none of them have the pace to be able to burst into the box and get into a position to take advantage of any ball that Højlund is able to get across goal. And this is why for me, given that it looks like Garnacho and Rashford will be leaving, or at least with Rashford leaving maybe in January, I think anyone we do sign needs to be adding pace and movement in behind to that forward line. And I'll come on to some suggestions on who United could look to replace them with. But before that, if you want to check out any of the current season jerseys, go over to Jersey FIFA. They've also got a variety of different retro and international shirts as well. You can use code Atlantis at checkout for a discount. A link will be in my Instagram bio, which I will leave linked in the description. So alongside Garnacho and Rashford, I would maybe also consider cashing in on Xerxes in order to enable us to sufficiently replace the pace we are losing, as ideally I would look to sign a premium player like Isaac in the summer, who could also play as either a centre forward or on the left of a front three, which would then allow us to sell Xerxes with Isaac able to play as a centre forward, and sign a player like Desiree Doué or Ademola Lookman, depending on the finances of both deals. Isaac would be the perfect Rashford upgrade, being a more complete version of a wide forward, enabling him to also play centrally. And let's say Lookman as well, because he would be slightly cheaper than Doué, being not only an upgrade on Xerxes as a player individually, but also someone who has a lot more versatility, and is also a lot quicker than Xerxes and some of the other United players who would play in that front three. And so whilst Isaac is the upgrade for Rashford, I think Lookman is the sort of upgrade that we should have got for Sancho in the summer. But moving on, in this next clip we also saw what Højlund can do when the centre-back drops off and gives him space to turn. Mazraoui, as he did throughout the game, is tight, strong, disciplined and decisive against Doku, sending him backwards before winning possession, and when the pass goes into Højlund's feet, I think Ruben Diaz gets caught ball watching, because if you're against Højlund, every time he drops off you want to go with him, because he's significantly less effective when he's having to hold off a centre-back on his back and link play efficiently as Xerxes does, compared to when you give him the space to turn as Diaz does here. But I think this clip also shows exactly how Amorim's attack should function at its most optimal, and it's dependent on having runners from deep, with Mazraoui's run dragging Guardiola deep, and Bruno Fernandes making a well-timed run across Walker from the half-space area, diagonal between him and Diaz, and Højlund's reverse pass to Bruno Fernandes is fantastic, and to be honest, I think 6 or 7 times out of 10 Bruno probably finishes this chance, and the move did deserve a goal, but as we saw from Mount in the week against Victoria Pilsen, those players behind the centre forward have to become a lot more clinical in front of goal, as this is where I think United will miss Garnacho and Rashford, and so that's why I think we need to replace either or both with players who can not only provide these movements in behind from these deeper positions, but also some clinical finishing to the United attack as well. And so even though United did get some good fortune with Nunes and Ederson making mistakes for the equaliser and winner, United did create the best chance from open play in the game, and even though we didn't create enough big chances throughout the entire match, until the penalty and then Ahmad's goal obviously, based on performance and the fact that it was a set piece which let us down once again, you have to say that we probably did deserve the victory, even if it was only marginal. For the equaliser, as Walker receives the ball, Mainu is out quickly applying pressure, and this is why I say we were fortunate to get the penalty rather than lucky, because Mainu and Xerxes on this left side forced the error from Núñez, with United at this point in the game and in this phase of play pressing in what resembled a 5-3-2, with Mainu having pushed out from his central midfield position and Xerxes retaining a wider and less central position in the midfield line. The pass gets played out to Núñez, and this is where we see the limitations in his game as a fullback or a wing-back on that right side, compared with the left side, as when he receives the ball, because he's not comfortable on his left foot, rather than just playing this lofted curling pass with his left foot, first time to split Xerxes and Agate on his inside, who is aggressively pushed onto Kovacic, with Mainu's pressing initially forcing Walker out to Núñez, cutting that passing lane into Kovacic, with Agate's higher position leaving Gundogan in space. Instead, because Núñez is on the opposite side to his right foot, he's forced to go backwards or at least take a touch and open up his body, as he's not able to do what someone like Cancelo would in this situation, which is use the inside of his right foot to bend it around Xerxes into that bit of space that Gundogan is in. And because Xerxes is out to him quickly, Núñez knows that if he takes a touch and opens up his body, his only real passing option is down the line, and so he has a moment of hesitation, but this is caused by United being ambitious late on in the game and pressing on the front foot, as not only do Mainu, Agate and Xerxes all push out quickly onto this right side, forcing Núñez to play the pass backwards, but Ahmad on the far side also takes a risk, as rather than dropping in to cover Guardiola, he recognises that a switch of play from Núñez out to City's left side centre-back is unlikely, and so he starts to creep forward towards Diaz, before Núñez has even received the ball. As Núñez is playing this pass back to Ederson, Ahmad has already anticipated it, and has a few yards head start because of his willingness to take that small but calculated risk, which is only allowed due to the fact that he knows Bruno, Mazraoui and Euro behind him aren't going to drop off if the ball goes past him, but will instead push up aggressively to follow the press, keeping it compact. And so whilst on the surface this may seem like a goal that has bailed Amorim out, when in actuality it stems from both his 5 at the back defensive shape in the middle third, which I think provides much needed security against a side like City that are going to use a front 5 in possession, but also his pressing strategy in general, which is the main difference between his side and Ten Hag's side, and which was very front foot at this stage of the game, both in terms of the positioning and the intensity of the press. And Ahmad showed his athleticism in both goals, but particularly this one, as he is so quick to hunt down the pass, he gets there before Ederson, and Ahmad with 2 years of development probably takes a touch which is a bit closer to goal and not angled as far towards the corner flag, which would have given him a slightly better angle for the shot, or he could have even just taken a shot from this position, curling it towards the centre of the goal after his initial touch to beat Ederson, and so logically you can see where the development will improve his output in the final third once he gets to that level. But in the end he probably makes the right decision not taking a shot, as even though his chance to score is gone, he does well in the end to be aware that Núñez is steaming in behind him, and just like Ruben Diaz against Højlund, but even worse in this case, is a complete head loss, and just hands Bruno Fernandes the equaliser on the plate, with Ahmad creating that opportunity more from his initial press and interception rather than the actual foul. But just quickly, before I come on to the analysis of the winning goal, if you do want to sign up to my in-game Instagram group chat, we do discuss things during the Manchester United game, and I'll answer your questions throughout the week. You can sign up to my Patreon, I'll leave it linked in all the usual places. So for the winning goal just a few minutes later, Martinez once again shows his creativity from that left-sided centre-back position, and he doesn't just immediately go for the long ball, instead he waits for Ahmad to make his pre-run, which I guess you could call it, to get into the position from where he can then accelerate in behind, with Mazraoui also pushing forward as a spare man on the outside of Núñez in that front 5, which no doubt plays into Núñez holding a slightly wider position, and being hesitant to come across and get narrow with Ahmad, which ultimately proves to be a factor in Ahmad getting goal side and getting in behind into the position he does. So here you can see you've got the back three, the midfield double pivot in front. This time it's Bruno Fernandes who's dropped off, with Mainu now holding a higher position, and as Martinez gets the ball out of his feet, I also think Xerxes' movement spinning into space behind Walker to Ruben Diaz's right also plays a significant but underrated role in this goal, as while Xerxes spinning in behind isn't a threat directly, with Xerxes unlike Højlund just not having the acceleration to really cause Diaz trouble when he's spinning into the channels, Diaz nonetheless still has to track Xerxes' run, and so the 4 or 5 yards that he gets dragged over to the right side with Xerxes is 4 or 5 yards opened up between him and Guardiola, and most importantly between him and Ahmad. However, you have to say Guardiola is more at fault in this situation, as he's done this a few times over the last few months, where he gets caught ball watching and doesn't see the running behind him, and Núñez over his shoulder is also too slow to react to Ahmad's run, but Martinez's pass yet again is spot on, on. And Edison as well, as he's done also a few times over the last few months, is far too hesitant when coming out, not closing down Ahmad fast enough, but also not sitting deep enough to stop Ahmad just running around him. Doing neither, sitting in between and allowing Ahmad to stretch, take a wonderful looping touch, and this time he has no other choice but to take it first time, and the angle is very narrow, but he does well to get it on target and it nestles in the net, giving United the lead in stoppage time. So that was my basic video analysis for this game. I'm going to be doing some more opinion pieces throughout the week, so make sure you subscribe and sign up to my Patreon if you do want access to the Instagram group chat, as well as some unreleased tactical videos as well.